Alright guys, it is I, Brainsmasher. I'm here today with a coming to the defense of poorly reviewed albums. Today we're going to be talking about Enochian's Night Monumental Evil. Let's see how it checks out, huh? Yeah, so in this series, my goal is to give an album a fair chance, despite reviews to the contrary or to the negative. Will this album live up to the negative hype? I'm going to give this album a fair shot. We're going to talk about it objectively. I'm going to be rating the album in 5 different categories, giving them a potential of as much as 20 points per category. So let's talk about Enochian's Night Monumental Evil. It's playing in the background right now, thanks to some technological wizardry pulled off by this young man. So Enochian were kind of an infamous Chechen band. This album was originally released in 1996 on Leviathan Records. And it has, over the years, garnered kind of an infamous notoriety to it due to a certain element or pair of elements on the cover art, which it is well known for. And this album's just been kind of infamous, and I've seen it, on forums kind of made fun of for this very reason over the years. And I've always just kind of thought, like, I don't know. I don't see what the big deal is. So, never judge a book by its boobs. We're going to get into it. Night Monumental Evil. It's starting off right now with an intro. It's got this sort of creepy sort of intro. And then after the intro, you get a song, kind of. It's like there's a harp intro, and then there's a clean guitar spoken word intro. Doesn't really count as a song for me anyways. Not feeling it off the bat. The first 3 minutes of the album are kind of a wash. Then you get into the second track, and then there's an intro on the second track too. So that, to my counting, I think at least that's 3 intros before you're hearing any metal. And like usually, I can afford you an intro. Maybe 2 intros, but like if I'm buying a black metal album from 1996, and I think there's going to be some black metal on the album, you better give me the black metal within the first, I don't know, 3 minutes or so, shall we say? Maybe that's somewhere in the ballpark. But right off the bat, Enochian, foot, shooting the foot. Not a good way to start off. So right now we're on the... okay, there. Intro over with. I started filming, I believe, after the first of the 3 intros. So anyways, in the category that we're going to be starting off with, let me get my notes gathered here. Every single song has an intro. Some songs have an intro and an outro. Later on, towards the back of the album, there's other, like, interlude songs that are also basically intros. And, I could see a band, like, recording a black metal album and being like, I bet I could write a bunch of intros that are way better than the metal that we just recorded. And, like, dude absconds off into his studio and, like, composes a bunch of intros to make the album, like, fluffed up and better. But the intros are not exceptional whatsoever. They're underwhelming. just like all the metal is. So I know this series is called Coming to the Defense of Albums That Are Poorly Reviewed. And look, I think in a sense I am kind of defending the album by giving it a fair shake, giving it a chance for a person who has, experienced a lot of black metal from the 90s. My palate at this point prefers new discoveries from that era. So I'm very willing to undergo a poor album, a mediocre album. Even mediocre albums sometimes I find pretty remarkable because I've listened to some of my favorite albums from the 90s 150 times. I don't need them anymore sometimes. Whatever. But this is severely underwhelming. Objectively, I am giving it a fair shake and saying that a 14% review that it does have on Encyclopedia Metallum is not quite fair. They're judging the book by the boobs. So on songwriting, out of 20, I'm going to give this album a 3 out of 20. It's boring. It's uninspired, even by the standards of 1996. It sounds like they're trying to sound like Cradle of Filth, of course. It's got... Yeah. These guys were so horny. That's all there is around to it. Okay, the next category, originality. Where do you think it stacks up originality-wise? I'll tell you what, the only time they're original is when they try something that any other band wouldn't really go for. They sound like, kind of like Cradle of Filth. They sound like in the middle of so many different influences. They're like Hellhammer, Celtic Frost pulled off what they did because they were presenting music in a barbaric way that had a clever enough presentation of that simplicity that it became their personality, and they ran with that personality and performed it with so much personality that it worked for them. And I guess in most cases in this album, the riffs seem like maybe they're trying to just go with, okay, less is more kind of thing. Riff-wise, doesn't work out that way. Less is less in this case. It's surprisingly similar to the Forced album that I reviewed in my last episode of this series. Just very simplistic riffing that could really use a lot more melodic embellishment. In fact, there's just, riff-wise, there's no melodies or harmonies. I don't know if the second guitars are even there. Total Cradle of Filth part, if you can hear this, I'm not sure. But originality, 1 out of 20. I am not feeling any originality out of this. The only time that they're doing something that I've never heard someone else before do is when it's because no one else was stupid enough to do it. Yeah, I know it's harsh criticism, but it's not living up very well. Let's get on to the production. How do the guitars sound? How do the drums sound? How's the mix? The levels? Does it have a spatial sort of quality to it? It's not bad. This is probably the best category for the album overall. The guitar tone is pretty tired, pretty limp. It's weak. It's unappealing. It doesn't have any sort of crunch to it. I've come to kind of have my standard baseline for what I want an album to have if I'm going to even endure it for a second listen, and that is to have at least a guitar tone that makes me say, I'm not done listening to that guitar sound for a while, right? You know, like, there's very basic guitar sounds, but I feel like as a guitar player, your job is to write songs, but also craft a guitar sound that doesn't necessarily have to be original. I mean, nasty black metal, whatever. But at least that has enough bite and venom to it that it sounds like, ooh, that's sinister, or something that conveys the overall atmosphere or personality that your music should be presenting to people. And that's just not there. The guitar sound here, and like, I'm not blaming the studio for the guitar sound. I think the guitar sound, no matter how you would produce it, would sound piss poor. It's just whatever. I don't know a whole lot about guitars or amps or pedals, but just sound like the guy had a shit distortion pedal, plugged it in and went, and just, yeah, whatever. And like, I know circumstances sometimes about studios and recordings and gear and stuff can go tits up on you unexpectedly. So who knows what may have happened, but the guitar sound on this is just awful. It's just, it lacks so much personality. Drums sound fine. Everything's clear. Everything's presented just fine. The mix is fine. The levels are okay, whatever. I don't feel like they must have done anything studio-wise to make this palatable or interesting or anything. It's just suitable. Bare minimum suitable. I think what I'm hearing in the vocals is maybe 2 takes of the vocals, but it could also be sometimes studios will will take a vocal take, copy it to left and right, and then make little tiny adjustments in left and right so that they can kind of have a sort of different attack to you, and that can kind of give you sort of like a spatial sort of breadth to your vocal sound. And I think that's going on here. Some vocalists, like in Deicide, a lot of times they'll have 2 vocal takes. That way the little nuances that are different kind of give it more volume and kind of help it kind of reach the overall tone of the instruments. I don't think like anything clever like that is going on here, but I am hearing something going on with the vocals. So like, they're trying a little bit to make it sort of interesting. They're trying something, and I'm going to give them 6 out of 20 for all of that. Just sounds fine. Whatever. They're trying a little bit. Out of 20, 6 is okay. For performance, this category, I want to hear you sound like you mean it. I want to hear you sound like you love the songs that you wrote with your band, and you are putting energy into recording it. That is something that is perceptible most of the time. There are albums that have, decent music, but the performances on them sometimes are so effective, and you can just hear that the band just sounds like they're just trying so hard to make the song sound so good that energy, that is a human element that can be transferred from a studio to a compact disc to a listener or a streaming service or whatever. By the way, I don't have a copy of this album. I hope I never do. The performance is piss poor. I think the drumming kind of is the overall engine to the whole album, sounding just really kind of tired and basic, just kind of going through the motions. Maybe the vocalist has the most sort of gusto about it overall. I'm just not feeling much about the songwriting, and the performance in the studio that they put to record just sounds tired. Every one of them. There's no discernible bass on the album. I can't really hear any bass. I don't know. So didn't really try very hard. And like, as you can see, look at the band photos of this band over time, and it's just like, you can see that there's kind of a habit of not really following through with ideas, kind of half-assing the inspiration to try to do something cool. It's a real head scratcher of a band for me. They're pulling in influences from various places, and I don't think they really thought through a lot of how this was going to be perceived. I I really think it's important as an artist, or at least as a musician who writes songs, to think about your music from the listener's perspective. I know, like, it's like this kind of topic can get a little convoluted and kind of heated, and I don't mean like consider the affection of your fans or make sure that you write music that people are gonna like. I mean, challenging music is important, sure, but I just feel like when I'm listening to metal, I want to hear that it was made by someone who also is very passionate about writing good metal that sounds like the good metal that all of us like. And it just seems like there wasn't a lot of effort put into having a concerted or unified vision on this album or throughout the whole band. It's just convoluted and just poor quality most of the time. I forget where I was. Performance, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 20. I can't really remember why I arrived at 5 for a point there in the performance. It's just okay at best. Sorry. Last category, highlights, lowlights. Highlights, there kind of aren't any. In this case, the lowlights are so low that I actually kind of did appreciate them. The song Impaler Grave of the Winter Storm has an intro to it that you just got to hear. It is so bad. And it was at that point through the album when I wrote down, like, this is an original idea. And it's original because no one else would ever fucking do this. So the highlight is the low light, and for that reason, I am going to give it 5 points for the highlight and low light category. Yeah, I'm feeling that. So for an overall on this album, we've got 5 points for highlights, 5 points for performance. That's 10 plus 6 for production, 16, 17. 1 point for originality and 3 for songwriting. We got 20 out of 100. So 20 points for Night Monumental Evil. Yeah, it's not great. Listen for yourself and let me know what you think about it. I'm kind of curious to see if I can find some interviews with any of the people in this band. I kind of want to know if the chick on the cover was like coerced into the situation. I mean, like, I could really see a lot of scenarios that would lead to the situation depicted on the cover, and in the band photos. And then I believe she's also the performer in the sexy intro part on the other song. So I'm kind of getting a dynamic in the band of maybe something wasn't so comfortable for the young lady who played keyboards in the band. So that's my review of Enochian's Night Monumental Evil. Let me know if you have any other ideas for albums I should do in this series. I know a lot of you guys are thinking that I'm like breaking my purpose or intent with the series by picking albums and then kind of slaughtering them, but this is exactly what I wanted to do. For the most part, so far, I'm enjoying approaching albums that I only know the poor notoriety of, but I'm not familiar with the content of said album. I'm liking digging in and getting a fresh take on it. A first time listen, a couple times through. With this one, I'll tell you, I listened to it. I started the album like 2 or 3 times and I went like, nah, I'm not quite ready to give this as much attention as this video deserves. But today I finally dug in and I listened to it front to back. And I'm playing it now, but this will be the last time I listen to this album. I've got plenty of other albums to listen to in my collection. So I hope you check it out. I think it's a fun way to kind of work on my chops as far as breaking down elementally the music that we love. So we'll see you again around YouTube some other time soon. Later. Woohoo! That was a great video, and it was made possible mostly by me, but also thanks to the undying and kind support of my Patreon subscribers. Thank you all. I love you. If you are interested in being a part of my Patreon channel and supporting what I do, you are welcome to join at the URL below. It is only $6.66 per month, and you're going to love it. Thank you.